Most of us know Nicolas Cage as the actor with the wild roles, the big performances, and the unforgettable voice. But behind all of that was a real person who carried pain, pressure, love, mistakes, and growth that the world never truly saw. This is not the story of a celebrity. This is the story of a man who rose, fell, rebuilt himself, and finally found peace in a place far quieter than fame. Nicolas Cage is a name almost everyone has heard. Many people know him from big action movies, emotional dramas, or unexpected roles that caught the public by surprise. He became known as an actor who could show intense feelings, unusual expressions, and a style of acting that did not follow the usual rules. Some called him brilliant, others called him strange. But no matter where people stood, almost everyone agreed that he was different. His presence on screen was strong. He could play a man broken by life, or someone fearless and unstoppable. He had a way of making viewers pay attention. Most people first noticed him in the 1,980 seconds and 1,990 seconds when he began appearing in films that became popular across the world. His roles in movies like Moonstruck, Raising Arizona, and Leaving Las Vegas showed that he was not afraid to take chances. He worked hard to shape each character, sometimes in unusual ways. When he won the Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas, it confirmed what many already believed. He was not just famous, he was respected as a serious actor. Later, he became a global star in large action films like The Rock, Face Off, and Con Air. These movies were seen by millions, and his name became recognized in many countries. His characters had strong emotions, and audiences remembered his expressions and voice. He became one of Hollywood's most talked-about actors, with a unique image that no one else matched. Some actors tried to copy his style, but few could. He did not act to look perfect. Instead, he acted to show something real, even if it looked unusual or intense. However, the way people saw him was not always simple. Some admired him deeply. Others made jokes about his acting choices. Over time, the public began to form different opinions, sometimes forgetting the work and effort he had put into his craft. Many viewers only saw the results: the famous movies, the awards, the performances that became memes, and the headlines about his personal life. His image became something bigger than the man himself. Yet behind the fame and public talk, Nicolas Cage remained someone who had gone through real struggles and experiences. His acting was not just performance. It was connected to his life, his memories, and his emotions. What people saw on screen came from somewhere personal. Everyone knows the name, but they do not always know the person who carried it. The successes, the intense roles, and the bold decisions were only one part of his story. But behind the performances, behind the roaring applause, there was a silence that had lived inside him since childhood. Nicolas Cage was born on the 7th of January 1964 in Long Beach, California. His birth name was Nicholas Kim Coppola. He grew up in a home where there was creativity, books, music, and discussion. But there was also a quiet kind of sadness that was not always spoken about. His father, August Coppola, was a literature professor. He loved reading, teaching, and sharing ideas. He was someone who believed in discipline, education, and structure. He expected his children to think deeply and express themselves clearly. Nicholas respected his father and learned from him. But sometimes the house felt strict and serious because of this. His father's world was built on logic and reason. His mother, Joy Vogelsang, was very different. She was a dancer and choreographer. Her personality was warm, creative, emotional, and expressive. She could be full of energy and joy, but there were also times when her emotions became overwhelming. She struggled with her mental health, and there were periods when she needed treatment. For a child, this kind of change was difficult to understand. One day, his mother would be dancing in the living room, laughing or telling stories. On another day, she might be distant, quiet, or unreachable. Nicholas did not have the words to explain it when he was young, but he could feel the shift in the atmosphere of the home. He learned early that feelings can be heavy and unpredictable. The house often felt divided. On one side, there was his father's world of order and thought. On the other, his mother's world of emotion and sensitivity. Growing up between these two influences gave Nicholas a wide emotional range. He understood that people could be strong and fragile at the same time. He learned how to watch, listen, and feel without speaking. Many times, he would sit silently and try to understand the mood in the room before he said anything. This made him a careful observer, a skill that later affected how he approached acting. He paid attention to details, tone, expression, silence, and pauses. As a child, he often felt lonely, even though he was not physically alone. His parents loved him, but the emotional distance in the home made him feel like he was carrying his feelings by himself. He would hear his mother crying behind a closed door, but did not know what he could do. He would see his father trying to manage the situation and stay calm, but the tension still filled the air. Nicholas learned to stay quiet, to hold his thoughts and emotions inside. This quietness became a part of him. He spent a lot of time in his imagination. When he played, he did not just play for fun, he created stories and characters. He would pretend to be someone else, someone who could express feelings freely. Acting, even before he knew it was acting, became a place where he could release the emotions he could not express at home. The characters he imagined were sometimes bold, loud, or dramatic. In those moments, he did not feel small. He did not feel unsure. He felt understood, even if only by himself. School did not take away the loneliness. He did okay in classes, but he did not feel deeply connected to other kids. He sometimes felt like he was watching life instead of living it. The separation between his inner world and the outside world remained. But over time, this quietness did something important. It made him sensitive to others. He could notice when someone was hiding sadness or when someone was pretending. He learned how emotions move under the surface. Later, when people praised the intensity of his acting, they were responding to this early emotional education. He was not imitating feelings. He was expressing ones he had carried for a long time. His mother's illness and the heavy atmosphere in the home also taught him that life can change quickly. He understood that happiness is not guaranteed and must be appreciated when it comes. He also understood that people are not always in control of what they feel. These lessons shaped him deeply. When he was 12 years old, his parents divorced. The separation ended the ongoing tension in the home, but it did not end the emotional impact. The house no longer had the same voices or habits. His mother's presence became irregular as she spent more time in treatment. His father took on the responsibility of raising him and his brothers. Nicholas continued to grow, but the quiet sadness stayed with him. And when the family finally broke apart, something inside him broke too, but not in the way anyone expected. As Nicholas entered his teenage years, school did not become easier. He attended Beverly Hills High School, a place where many students came from wealthy families or had connections in the entertainment world. Some students were confident, social, and sure of themselves. Nicholas did not feel that way. Even though his family had artistic background, he felt different. People knew his last name, Coppola, which connected him to a well-known family in filmmaking. Instead of helping him, this made things worse. Some students believed that his path in life was already set. They assumed success would come to him easily. They sometimes acted as if he did not need to try or prove himself. This made him feel misunderstood. He did not want to be known for his family name. He wanted to be known for who he was. But at school, he often felt alone. He tried to blend in, but blending in did not feel natural for him. He did not feel comfortable being just another student, trying to fit into a group. He felt a distance between his inner world and the one around him. That distance began to form a question inside him. Who am I supposed to be? Around this time, he began experimenting with changing how he presented himself. He tried new clothing styles, new attitudes, and new ways of speaking. He wanted to control how others saw him, instead of being defined by his background. For a period, he even started calling himself Roy Richards. It was not just a nickname. It was a way of stepping outside the life that felt too heavy for him. The name gave him a temporary escape. With that name, he could move without people expecting him to act a certain way because of his family. But this wasn't only about running away from something. It was also about searching for something. He was looking for a version of himself that felt true. He wanted a sense of identity that was not borrowed, not assumed, and not based on anyone else's success. During these years, he felt a strong desire for meaning, a need to express something he couldn't put into words. The quiet feelings from his childhood were still with him, and he needed somewhere to put them. That is when acting became important. He saw films that moved him deeply. Actors like James Dean and Bruce Lee did not just play roles. They expressed pain, strength, confusion, and courage. Watching them, he realized that acting was not only pretending, it was a way of showing something real that many people hide. He began to understand that acting could help him release emotions that were bottled up inside him for years. It could be a place where he did not have to stay quiet. He started taking acting classes and studying performances carefully. He practiced in front of mirrors and rehearsed lines alone. He wanted to improve, not to impress others, but to feel honest on screen. Acting gave him a sense of freedom. When he acted, he did not feel invisible. He did not feel like the child who listened to silence or the teen who did not fit in. He felt present. However, one problem remained: his last name. As long as he was Coppola, he would always be compared to his famous family. He knew that some people would assume he became successful only because of those connections. He did not want his achievements to be dismissed or minimized. He wanted to be independent. So, he made a major decision. He chose a new name, Nicolas Cage. The name Cage was inspired partly by the composer John Cage and partly by the comic book character Luke Cage. One represented creativity and experimentation. The other represented strength and resilience. The name reflected both sides of him. Changing his name was not only about avoiding judgment, it was a step toward choosing his own identity. He was no longer hiding. He was shaping himself. With his new name, he began pursuing acting more seriously. He took auditions, practiced constantly, and tried to find any small chance to prove himself. He was no longer pretending to be someone else just to blend in. Instead, he was becoming someone who felt real to him. But even with a new name and a new sense of direction, the journey ahead was not easy. His life as an actor did not begin with fame or recognition. It began in quiet places, with small jobs, disappointment, and long nights. The road to being seen would begin not in studios, but in popcorn fumes and empty theaters. After taking the name Nicolas Cage, he knew the path ahead would not be easy. Wanting to be seen for his own merit meant starting at the bottom. There were no special shortcuts, no appointments arranged for him simply because of who his family was. He avoided using his uncle Francis Ford Coppola's name for opportunities. That choice left him with the same reality many young actors face: low-paying jobs, unstable living situations, and constant uncertainty. During this time, he lived in small apartments that were barely furnished. Sometimes rent was difficult to manage, and there were nights when he slept in his car. The car became more than transportation. It became shelter when needed. He worked at simple jobs to get by. One of those jobs was selling popcorn at a movie theater. While he stood behind the counter serving snacks, people around him came to watch films on the big screen. He could hear the audience reacting to stories while he waited for his own chance to be part of that world. It was a small kind of pain, knowing what he wanted, yet serving customers who were watching others live that dream. Auditions were another part of the struggle. He traveled from one casting call to another, sometimes waiting hours just to stand in front of people who barely looked up. Rejection became routine. Many times, he left auditions feeling invisible. Some casting directors did not see the seriousness in his eyes, or they believed his intensity was strange. Others quietly assumed he was where he was, only because of his family background. These assumptions hurt him because they erased the effort he was making. One of his early film experiences came with Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He was excited to be part of the production. He believed the role could help him move forward. He waited for the release, imagining the moment when he would watch himself on screen. But when the film came out, he learned that most of his scenes had been removed. Sitting in the theater, waiting for his moments that never appeared, was a form of heartbreak. It was not only disappointment, it made him question whether the industry truly had a place for him. Afterward, he told himself that if he wanted to continue, he had to do it with full commitment. Half-hearted effort would not survive in an environment where rejection was constant. He knew that using his famous last name might make some opportunities easier. But he also knew that if he took that path, people would say he did not earn anything on his own. This thought stayed with him. He wanted to build something real. "I must earn it, not inherit it," became a silent rule for him. He did not want to feel like he owed his success to someone else's work. That belief gave him direction, but it also made his journey harder. The obstacles he faced were not softened. He chose the rough version of the road because he wanted to know that every step belonged to him. As the financial pressures continued, and the mourning steadied, emotional weight of rejection grew heavier. Many would have considered giving up. Acting did not promise stability. It did not guarantee comfort. But for Nicolas, acting was not just a career choice. It was the way he expressed himself. It was the only place where the emotions he carried from childhood could come out honestly. Quitting would mean going silent again, and he could not accept that. So he stayed committed, even when the progress was slow. He kept taking auditions, kept studying techniques, kept pushing himself. The hunger to be seen for who he truly was remained strong, and slowly, people began to take notice, not because of his name, but because of the dedication in his performances. He had gone through years of small roles, financial difficulty, and emotional weight, but he did not lose focus. Then came the moment that would begin to change things. The industry started to recognize him. The seriousness in his eyes, which some had once misunderstood, began to be seen as intention. Casting directors who once overlooked him started to consider him differently, and the name he had chosen, Nicolas Cage, began to be spoken with curiosity and respect. And then, the name changed, and everything began to shift. His first real turning point came when he appeared in the film Rumble Fish in 1983. The movie was directed by his uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, but this time, Nicolas did not enter the film because of family influence. He had already been working to prove himself, and his performance showed that he brought something personal to the screen. In Rumble Fish, he played a character who carried quiet strength. Even though his role was not the main part, people noticed the seriousness in how he acted. It was clear that he was not there just to be seen. He was there to express something deeper. This film gave him the confidence to keep moving forward. His commitment to acting soon became clearer in Birdie 1984. For this role, he made a decision that would surprise many. To understand his character's physical and emotional experience, Nicolas had 2 of his teeth removed without anesthesia. He wanted to feel real pain so that his performance would not look artificial. This choice was extreme, and many people would never consider something like this. But for Nicolas, this was not about trying to shock anyone. It was his way of connecting honestly with the emotions of the character. During filming, He even spent weeks with his face wrapped in bandages to maintain the feeling of discomfort and isolation. He did not simply act. He tried to live the experience. While some critics questioned his methods, others saw that he was unlike most actors. He was willing to take risks that others avoided. This level of dedication began to shape how the industry viewed him. He was recognized as intense, unpredictable, and fearless in his approach to roles. He did not follow the usual path of acting. He did not try to look smooth or polished. His performances came from a place of emotional truth. Sometimes the emotion looked raw or unusual, but it was always sincere. This sincerity made him stand out. Directors started to see that he could bring something powerful to the screen, something that could not be easily replicated. His rising career gained more strength with the film Moonstruck in 1987. In this film, he played a bakery worker who had lost part of his hand and carried emotional frustration. His performance was strong and memorable. He brought a kind of passion that felt natural, not forced. Audiences connected with him. The film became successful and well-loved, and Nicolas's role helped him step into wider recognition. People who had not paid attention to him before began to notice him now. Viewers across the country saw him as someone who could play characters with deep emotional weight and complexity. Around this time, Nicolas began developing what many would later call the Cage identity. It was not a technique or a strategy. It was simply who he was. He acted with intensity. He allowed emotions to be visible. He did not try to hide or soften powerful feelings. When he was passionate, it showed. When he was angry, it was clear. When he was vulnerable, he did not cover it. His performances felt alive, sometimes surprising and impossible to ignore. People could sense that he was not just acting. He was expressing something from real places inside himself. This made him unique. While many actors tried to look controlled and perfectly structured in their performances, Nicolas took the opposite approach. He allowed unpredictability. He allowed emotional movement. This style could not be easily copied. Some viewers found it exhilarating, others found it strange or unusual, but no one could overlook it. He had found a way to be seen in a world where many struggled to stand out. As more films came, his reputation grew. Industry professionals began to respect him not just as someone from a famous family, but as someone who contributed something meaningful and original to film. He had worked through rejection, financial struggle, and doubt. But now, his effort was visible. His identity as an actor was becoming clear to both audiences and filmmakers. This was the period when Nicolas Cage was no longer trying to prove he deserved to be there. He had earned his place. The roles he took reflected his range and his willingness to take risks. He was no longer simply an actor searching for recognition. He had become an artist shaping his own path. But as his presence on screen grew stronger, so did the expectations placed on him. The more attention he received, the more the pressure increased. His style that once set him free began to come with new challenges, because the fire that illuminates can also consume, and the screen was only getting brighter. His career reached a higher level when he starred in Leaving Las Vegas in 1995. In this film, he played a man, struggling with severe alcoholism and emotional pain. The role demanded honesty and vulnerability. Nicolas put his whole self into the performance. He did not try to look impressive or heroic. He allowed the character's weakness and suffering to show clearly. Many people said it was one of the most truthful performances they had ever seen. Critics praised him, audiences were moved, and the industry took notice. When he won the Academy Award for Best Actor, it confirmed that he was not just unique or intense, he was recognized as one of the best in his field. Winning the Oscar was a major milestone, the kind that can change an actor's entire career. After this success, he moved into a new phase. Instead of emotional drama, he began acting in large action films. In 1996, The Rock was released. In this movie, He played a chemist caught in a dangerous situation involving military conflict and a hostage crisis. The film was exciting and widely enjoyed. It made him known as someone who could lead big action stories. His performance balanced seriousness and personality, and audiences connected with him. Then came Con Air in 1997. He played a former soldier trying to return home after serving time in prison. The movie was full of action and memorable characters. It became a global hit, and Nicolas became even more famous. His face was now appearing in posters around the world. Crowds recognized him instantly. It was no longer just about acting skills. He had become a box office star. That same year, Face Off was released. This film was different from typical action movies because it required emotional and psychological depth. Nicolas and John Travolta played characters who switch identities. The acting required precision and intensity. Nicolas showed that he could handle both dramatic and action-heavy roles at the highest level. All three of these films were successful in theaters, making large profits and gaining wide popularity. This period marked the peak of his fame in terms of global visibility. Studios saw him as someone who could lead big movies and bring audiences. He became known as a bankable star. That meant that if he appeared in a film, the film was likely to earn money. His name became connected to success. Producers and studios wanted him. Directors wanted him. His schedule filled quickly because there were constant offers. For many people watching from the outside, this looked like the perfect life. He was winning awards, earning high salaries, and gaining worldwide recognition. His face appeared on magazine covers, talk shows, and entertainment news. To the public, this was the dream: fame, success, and admiration. But from the inside, the experience felt different. With fame came pressure. He worked long hours, traveled constantly, and had little personal time. The work required energy, concentration, and emotional presence. However, the pace of his career left very little room for rest or reflection. He had achieved what he wanted, but the cost was growing heavier. Acting at that level meant always being in the public eye. People expected him to keep performing at the same high level. They expected strong roles, emotional depth, and successful films. The more he gave, the more the public asked from him. There was little space for mistakes. There was little time to slow down, breathe, or think about what came next. Success can create its own type of pressure, where one must continue proving oneself again and again. Even though the outside world saw achievement and triumph, Nicolas felt tired inside. He had been working intensely for many years. The emotional demand of acting, combined with the physical demands of large productions, created ongoing exhaustion. There were moments when he tried to enjoy what he had earned, but the pressure to maintain success kept increasing. During this period, the idea of being unstoppable was both a reality and a weight. He had reached a level where almost everyone knew his name, but the attention, expectations, and demands of that level created new challenges. Success can bring opportunities, but it can also create a feeling of being trapped. Nicolas had the fame, the respect, and the financial rewards. Yet, he was also facing the strain that comes with constant visibility and expectation. And as his career continued, the world did not slow down for him. Because when the world gives you everything, it expects everything in return. During the years when his career was rising, Nicolas also experienced relationships that shaped him in deep ways. Each relationship came at a different time in his life and reflected what he was searching for then. His first major relationship was with actress Christina Fulton in the late 1982. They were both young and still growing. Their time together was filled with learning and big emotions. In 1990, they welcomed their son, Weston. Becoming a father changed Nicolas. It gave him a new sense of responsibility and connection. He loved his son and felt proud watching him grow. However, His work schedule was demanding. He was traveling often and filming in different places. This made it difficult to maintain stability at home. Christina ended up raising Weston mostly on her own. Nicholas cared for them both, but his career did not allow him to be present in the day-to-day life of family. This relationship taught him about love, commitment, and the challenges of balancing personal life with a busy career. After some years, he met Kristen Zhang. She was a model, and many people described her as calm, patient, and understanding. Nicholas felt comfortable with her. She brought a sense of peace into his life during a time when fame was increasing quickly. They spent time together quietly, away from the spotlight. For a while, it seemed like he had found something stable and simple. He proposed to her, and they planned to marry. However, just before the wedding, their relationship ended. The breakup was not loud or public. It was the result of emotional distance that had grown slowly. Nicholas later said that Kristen represented peace he was not yet ready to maintain. He cared for her, but he was still living in a world of constant movement and emotional intensity. The timing was not right, and they went separate ways. Then came Patricia Arquette, the relationship many people remember as intense. Nicholas admired her for years before they even dated. He once tried to win her affection by completing a list of unusual tasks she jokingly mentioned, including finding specific, rare items. He took her words seriously and spent years trying to show how deeply he felt. Eventually, they did marry in 1995. Their relationship was passionate, emotional, and often dramatic. They loved each other strongly, but their personalities and lifestyles were not always compatible. The relationship had highs and lows, and the emotional weight of it made it difficult to maintain stability. They divorced in 2001. Later, Patricia said, they cared for each other but were in love with the idea of love. Nicholas said that their connection was powerful, but it did not last in everyday life. Not long after that, he married Lisa Marie Presley in 2002. She was the daughter of Elvis Presley, which made the public pay close attention to their relationship. Nicholas said he was drawn to her kindness and strength. They shared an understanding of what it meant to grow up with public attention and high expectations. However, their marriage was short. One moment that people remember is when, after an emotional argument, Nicholas threw his wedding ring into a river. This act showed how overwhelming the relationship had become. He later tried to find the ring again, but could not. Their marriage ended after only a few months, and both of them admitted that the relationship had been difficult and unstable. Still, they respected each other after the separation. Through these relationships, Nicholas experienced love in different forms: grounding love, peaceful love, passionate love, and emotional love. Each one taught him something about himself. At different times in his life, he was searching for belonging, understanding, excitement, or calm. But the pattern was often the same. His intense emotional nature made it difficult to remain in relationships for long. Acting required emotional energy, travel, and long periods away, and this made it challenging to maintain closeness at home. However, love was not finished shaping his life. He did not give up on the possibility of connection, even after heartbreak. His journey in relationships was not yet complete. There was still another chapter ahead, one that would test him in a different and more personal way. But the greatest test of love would be the one that had nothing to do with romance. As Nicholas became more successful, his income and fame increased quickly. With this came the ability to buy the things he once only imagined. He bought several houses, cars, and rare items. Many people talked about his spending, sometimes with judgment. But for him, these things were not just purchases. They held personal meaning. He bought a home with a large library because books reminded him of his father. He bought a castle because it made him feel connected to history and tradition. He purchased rare art and unusual collectibles because they made him feel inspired and curious. These choices were not simply about showing off wealth. They were connected to his personality, emotional, passionate, and interested in things with story and character. However, maintaining multiple properties and expensive items came with high costs. Taxes, upkeep, and management became large financial responsibilities. At the same time, the film industry began to shift. Some movies did not perform as expected. Personal and business decisions did not always go well. Over time, financial strain began to build. Then, the situation changed dramatically. In the late 2000s, the housing market and financial markets in the United States crashed. This affected many people, including Nicholas. The value of properties dropped, and debts increased. It became harder to sell his assets at the price they were worth before. In 2009, the IRS placed a lien of more than $6 million against him for unpaid taxes. This created a financial crisis that could not be ignored. It became clear that the cost of the lifestyle he had built was no longer manageable. Many celebrities in similar situations declared bankruptcy to protect themselves. But Nicholas refused. He said, "I got myself into this, and I will get myself out." This decision showed a strong sense of responsibility, but it also made the situation harder to handle. It meant he had to face the challenge directly. One by one, the homes, the cars, and many of the collectibles were sold. Some of these sales were public, and tabloids followed closely. Newspapers and magazines printed stories mocking his spending. They used headlines that made him look careless or reckless. The public did not see the meaning these things held for him. They saw only the numbers and the downfall. During this time, Nicholas was dealing not only with financial loss, but also with emotional stress. The lifestyle he had built gave him a sense of safety and identity. Losing those things felt like losing pieces of himself. At the same time, the pressure from media attention made it harder. Every loss became public news. People were quick to judge, and many did not understand how much this affected him personally. It was not just money. It was years of effort, memories, and emotional attachment. Privately, he felt the weight of what had happened. The confidence he once had began to shake. He questioned his decisions and wondered how people saw him now. The contrast between the glamour of his earlier success and the difficulty of this period was painful. However, he did not allow himself to stop. He believed that the only way forward was to continue working. So, he began accepting many roles, sometimes several in one year. These films varied in style and budget. Some were large productions, others were smaller, independent movies. He did not have the luxury to be selective. His goal was to pay what he owed and rebuild stability. Working this much was exhausting, but he stayed committed. While he was filming repeatedly and working non-stop, the public conversation continued. Some people said he was doing too many movies. Others assumed he did not care about quality anymore. But they did not see the reason behind it. They did not see the responsibility he felt. In private, he was trying to rebuild his life piece by piece. He worked because he did not want to lose everything he had built over the years. The fall from his high point was not sudden. It was a gradual shift that came with emotional, financial, and personal challenges. But even when things looked the hardest, he did not step back or accept defeat. He continued to push forward. The world expected him to disappear. Instead, he worked. During the years after his financial troubles became public, Nicholas focused almost entirely on work. He accepted many roles, one after another, sometimes filming several movies in the same year. These were not always major studio projects. Many were independent films, lower-budget productions, or movies filmed in remote locations. The purpose was not fame, it was stability. He needed to pay off debt, support his family, and rebuild his financial foundation. This period required discipline and endurance. He worked long days, traveled constantly, and had little time to rest. It was tiring both physically and mentally. but he believed that continuing to work was the only way forward. During this time, the media often made jokes about how many films he was doing. Some articles suggested he was taking any role offered to him without care for quality. Online, people posted images, comments, and videos making fun of his acting style. What many did not understand was that he was not acting for attention or for style. He was acting to survive. He did not complain publicly. He did not try to explain himself. He simply continued to work. He remained professional on set, showed up prepared, and respected the people he worked with. A lot of actors in similar circumstances might have stopped or faded into the background. He did not. Even when people mocked him, he did not respond with anger or bitterness. He stayed quiet and focused. He believed that over time, the work would speak for itself. The idea of resilience became central to his life. He had experienced success and praise, but now he was learning persistence and patience. The world that once celebrated him was now watching from a distance, but he continued to move forward. He kept choosing roles that allowed him to grow, even if the films did not receive widespread attention. As he continued working, something began to shift slowly. Independent film directors started to notice the depth he brought to his characters. They saw that he was willing to explore emotional layers in a way many actors did not. These directors valued sincerity more than fame. They were interested in actors who took risks and were willing to show vulnerability. Nicolas's dedication and experience made him appealing to these filmmakers. This led to roles in films like Joe, 2013, and later Mandy, 2018. These films showed a different side of him: calm, controlled, and deeply emotional. Audiences who watched these films noticed something. The performances were strong and honest. There was no need for large action scenes or dramatic effects. The focus was on character and emotion. Critics began to speak differently about his work. Some wrote that he had never lost his talent, only that the world had stopped paying attention for a while. Others pointed out that he had always been capable of meaningful performances, even during the years when the public misunderstood him. This period showed that Nicolas was not defined by success or failure. He continued to create, even when the spotlight was dim. His work proved that he was dedicated to his craft, regardless of how others perceived him. He had moved beyond trying to impress anyone. His new focus was consistency, growth, and truth in the characters he played. Over time, even people who once criticized him began to see his work differently. They realized that the large number of films was not evidence of carelessness, but evidence of responsibility, determination, and strength. He continued to build his career again, not through sudden success, but through steady effort. As the years went by, something new started to enter his life. It was not related to fame, money, or professional recognition. It was something quieter and more personal. He had rebuilt his work life. He had regained a sense of balance. Now, something else was waiting for him, something that did not require performance or struggle. And then, when everything seemed stripped away, a different kind of love appeared. After many years of constant work, travel, and emotional strain, Nicolas entered a quieter stage of life. In 2020, while he was visiting Japan for a film project, he met Riko Shibata. She was much younger than him, gentle in personality, and not part of the Hollywood world. Their meeting was simple. There was no red carpet, no media attention, and no performance involved. They spent time talking, walking, and sharing meals. For Nicolas, this simplicity felt different. It did not feel rushed or filled with expectation. It felt like something steady. Their relationship developed slowly and naturally. Nicolas had experienced intense relationships in the past, relationships full of emotion and pressure. With Riko, the feeling was calm. She listened, understood, and did not push him to be anything other than himself. This was something he needed. For many years, He had lived under the public eye, always being watched and talked about. Rico did not make him feel like a public figure. She made him feel like a person. In 2021, they married in a small ceremony. There were no dramatic celebrations or media spectacles. He chose the date with care. They married on February 16, the birthday of his father. This was a quiet way of honoring the man who shaped his early life. The ceremony was small and warm, attended only by close family and friends. For Nicolas, it was a meaningful moment. He was not trying to impress anyone. He was simply choosing peace. The following year, in 2022, their daughter was born. They named her August. Giving her this name was a personal choice, connected to both his father and to a new beginning. Becoming a father again at an older age changed him. This time, he was more aware and more present. He had lived through success, failure, pressure, exhaustion, and renewal. Now, he had the chance to experience family life in a different way. His home life became simple. He spent mornings making breakfast, taking walks, and watching his daughter explore the world. He enjoyed small, everyday things like planting in the garden, cooking at home, and listening to music in a quiet room. These activities were ordinary, but they brought him more comfort than luxury ever had. He no longer needed castles, expensive collections, or large public attention to feel fulfilled. The pressure that used to follow him slowly became lighter. This simplicity did not mean he stopped acting. He continued to work, but the relationship he had with acting changed. It was no longer tied to proving anything or meeting expectations. He chose roles that allowed him to express something meaningful. Some of these roles were in smaller films, but they felt honest and fulfilling. The work became a part of his life, not the center of it. In interviews during this period, Nicolas spoke quietly and thoughtfully. He did not talk about fame or legacy. He talked about time, presence, family, and gratitude. People who met him noticed that he seemed gentler, calmer, and more comfortable in himself. The intense energy he once carried was still there, but now it was steady instead of restless. What changed was not only his circumstances, but his understanding of what mattered. The early part of his life had been shaped by emotion and ambition. The later part of his life had been shaped by endurance and rebuilding. Now, this new stage was shaped by appreciation. He no longer needed to escape the quiet. He had learned to live inside it. The silence that once felt heavy now felt peaceful. The man who once stood on movie posters around the world now spent his days with his wife and daughter, enjoying a life that did not need an audience. There was no ending to the story, no dramatic final moment, just a quiet return to himself. But one question remains. What, after everything, does Nicolas Cage believe life really is? In the end, the treasure was never the fame. It was the man who survived it. After everything he went through, the early loneliness, the rise to fame, the intense relationships, the financial struggles, and the long years of rebuilding, what remains is a person who learned how to keep going. Nicolas Cage did not stay famous because everything came easily to him. He stayed because he kept moving, even when things were heavy. He showed that a person can fall more than once and still stand up again. His career does not follow one straight path. It has high points and low points. There were times when the world praised him, and times when people made fun of him. There were years when he was seen as one of the most respected actors in Hollywood, and years when the public misunderstood his choices. But through all of it, he did not give up on the work. Acting was not just a job for him, it was how he expressed what he felt. It was how he stayed connected to himself. What remains after the fire is not the awards, the headlines, or the money. Those things changed over time. What remains is the effort, the resilience, and the ability to grow. Nicolas learned how to adapt. He learned how to rebuild. He learned how to accept peace when it arrived. These lessons did not come quickly. They came from years of struggle and reflection. His journey teaches us something about life that is simple but often forgotten. Success does not protect anyone from pain. Fame does not remove personal difficulty. And strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is continuing even when things are uncertain. Many people go through difficult periods, but they feel alone because their struggles are not public. Nicholas's story shows that struggle can happen even to those who seem to have everything. Another part of his story is about identity. For many years, he tried to prove himself. He wanted to be seen for who he truly was, not for his last name, his past, or the image others created of him. It took a long time for him to feel comfortable in his own skin, but eventually, he found a way to be at peace with himself. That peace did not come from applause or success. It came from accepting life as it is and choosing what matters. Today, his legacy is not only in movies, it is in the example he gives. A person can live through pressure, loss, public criticism, and personal struggle and still continue. A person can change. A person can begin again, even later in life. And a person can find happiness in quiet places, not only in big moments. There is no final answer to what life means. But his journey suggests that life is not just about goals or achievements. It is about learning how to understand yourself. It is about staying steady when things are difficult. It is about appreciating the small parts of life that often go unnoticed. In the end, he did not need to prove anything to anyone. He learned how to be present. He learned how to live with peace. And maybe that is what remains. The quiet kind of strength. The simple kind of joy. The truth of a life fully lived.